Right now, something extraordinary has shaken Jerusalem. Witnesses claim that a radiant celestial light appeared over the Temple Mount, a light unlike anything seen in generations. Some describe it as a heavenly sign, others as a warning, and still others whisper that ancient prophecies are beginning to unfold before our very eyes. If you believe that no event in Jerusalem is without meaning, stay with us until the end of this video. We will uncover what happened today, why witnesses are calling it divine, and how it connects to prophecies that speak of the end of days. Subscribe now and join us as we reveal the truth behind the Temple Mount miracle. Chapter 1: The Light over Zion. It began just after dawn, when the first golden rays of sunlight touched the limestone walls of the old city. Vendors were opening their shops, pilgrims were making their way through the narrow alleys, and the call to prayer echoed softly across Jerusalem. It was an ordinary morning, until the sky changed. According to dozens of witnesses, a beam of light appeared suddenly above the Temple Mount, descending in silence from a cloudless sky. It was not the warm glow of the sun or the passing flicker of an airplane. This light pulsed, alive and deliberate, forming a column that hovered above the dome of the rock like a celestial finger pointing downward. It was as if heaven itself was reaching for the earth, said Miriam, a 63-year-old woman from Haifa who had come to pray that morning. We all stopped. No one spoke. Everyone knew this was not normal. Phones emerged from pockets, videos began to circulate, and social media exploded with theories. Some said it was an atmospheric anomaly. Others speculated about secret military technology. But among believers, a different interpretation spread quickly, one that felt written in the very bones of the city. Could this be a sign from God? For centuries, prophets spoke of lights and signs appearing over Zion before the fulfillment of divine promises. Isaiah wrote of a day when the glory of the Lord shall rise upon you. Zechariah described the Lord's presence returning to his chosen mountain. To the faithful, the sudden appearance of an unexplained light above the holiest site in Judaism, Christianity, and Islam could not be mere coincidence. Witnesses reported that the light lingered for several minutes, shifting subtly in shape as if it were responding to something unseen. Some claimed it expanded into the form of a crown, others said it split into 3 beams, reminiscent of the Trinitarian blessing. A group of yeshiva students recited psalms aloud, while a priest near the western wall dropped to his knees in silent prayer. Even among those who doubted the supernatural, the air felt charged, as though an ancient presence had stirred after centuries of silence. Local authorities were quick to offer scientific explanations. Meteorologists suggested a rare atmospheric reflection caused by ice crystals in the upper atmosphere. Astronomers speculated about solar refraction. Yet none of these theories explained why the phenomenon was visible only above the Temple Mount and nowhere else in the city, or why it had appeared on the exact anniversary of the destruction of the Second Temple, a date heavy with prophetic symbolism. By midday, religious scholars were already calling emergency conferences. Rabbis and priests debated the meaning of the event, referencing ancient texts and modern prophecies. In several synagogues and churches, congregations gathered spontaneously to pray, convinced that something greater than science had touched Jerusalem that day. Whatever the explanation, one fact was undeniable: a light, unexplained, brilliant, and deeply symbolic, had appeared over the most contested and sacred ground on earth. And for many, it was not just an optical phenomenon. It was a message. A message from heaven. Chapter 2: Prophecies Written in Light. Throughout history, Jerusalem has been more than a city. It has been a mirror, reflecting divine intention, human rebellion, and the mysterious rhythm of prophecy. Every stone on the Temple Mount has witnessed empires rise and fall, covenants made and broken, promises spoken and fulfilled. And in the language of prophecy, light has always been more than a physical phenomenon. It is a message, one that speaks of revelation, redemption, and the nearing of a moment long foretold. The ancient prophets often described light as the visible signature of divine intervention. Isaiah proclaimed, "Arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord rises upon you." Isaiah 60 verse 1, this was not poetic metaphor, it was a vision of a time when God's presence would once again be seen over Zion, signaling the dawn of a new age. Ezekiel spoke of the glory of the Lord returning to the temple from the east in a blaze of radiant light. And the prophet Joel foretold wonders in the heavens and on the earth, blood and fire and columns of smoke before the great and terrible day of the Lord. To many scholars, the celestial phenomenon witnessed above the Temple Mount is more than a curiosity, it is a possible fulfillment of these promises. They argue that the context is too precise to ignore. It appeared on a date of deep historical and prophetic resonance. It manifested over the single most important geographic point in biblical eschatology. And it evoked the very imagery that prophets associated with divine visitation. The rabbinical texts go even further. In the Midrash, there is a teaching that a light shall return to Zion when the hearts of the nations grow cold. Many theologians interpret this as a sign that when global faith declines and chaos spreads, God will reassert His presence with unmistakable signs. In a world weary from wars, pandemics, and political upheaval, the appearance of a radiant light over the Temple Mount seems almost scripted, a divine punctuation in an age of disbelief. Christian interpretations follow a similar thread. Jesus Himself spoke of signs in the heavens that would precede His return. There will be signs in the sun, moon, and stars, He said in Luke 21 verse 25, and on the earth distress of nations. Early church fathers like Origen and Chrysostom understood this not only as cosmic events but as visible signals over holy ground, harbingers that history was shifting. To many believers, the light over Jerusalem feels like one of those harbingers. There is also the mysterious connection to the Shekinah, the visible dwelling of God's presence described in Jewish tradition. The Shekinah appeared as a pillar of fire above the tabernacle in the wilderness in His radiant glory filling Solomon's temple. Its disappearance after the Babylonian exile marked a long silence between heaven and earth. Could the light seen now be a glimpse of that same glory returning? If so, it would signify that the divine narrative is entering its final chapters. Even Islamic tradition holds that extraordinary signs will precede the end of days, including a light that will rise from the west and heavenly phenomena above Al-Quds, Jerusalem. The Quran describes God as the light of the heavens and the earth, and classical scholars have linked celestial radiance over sacred sites to moments of divine will manifesting in human history. But perhaps the most striking aspect is how this event has stirred a hunger for meaning across faiths. In a rare moment, Jews, Christians, and Muslims, often divided by centuries of theology and politics, are looking at the same sky and asking the same question: what is God telling us? The fact that such unity is born not from political negotiation but from collective awe speaks to the power of signs themselves. They bypass intellect and ideology and speak directly to the soul. Skeptics, of course, remain unconvinced. They argue that human beings have always sought meaning in natural events, reading intention into coincidence. Yet even they cannot deny the psychological and spiritual impact of what happened. For believers, it is not about proof, it is about pattern. And this pattern, light over Zion, on a day heavy with prophetic meaning, in a time of global turmoil, fits too well to be dismissed. If history teaches us anything, it is that divine messages often begin with light. From the burning bush that called Moses to the star that led the Magi, from the blinding vision that transformed Saul to the fire that descended at Pentecost, light has always announced that something extraordinary is unfolding. Perhaps the light over the Temple Mount is no different. Perhaps it is the prelude to something far greater than we yet understand. Whatever the case, one thing is certain: prophecy, once confined to ancient scrolls and sermons, is no longer a distant memory. It is unfolding again, not in whispers or symbols, but in the skies above the most sacred hill on earth. And those who watch and understand know that this may only be the beginning. Chapter 3, A World Reacts to the Sign. News of the mysterious light over the Temple Mount spread across the world faster than any official explanation could catch up. Within hours, major media outlets had picked up the story, each offering their own interpretation, from measured scientific speculation to outright sensationalism. Television panels debated whether this was a rare atmospheric event, a hoax, or something beyond human understanding. Yet even amid the noise of analysis, one truth emerged: humanity was transfixed. In Tel Aviv, the government's science ministry held a press conference, displaying meteorological charts and satellite images in an attempt to offer a rational explanation. There was no known astronomical or atmospheric anomaly, admitted one scientist, but further investigation is underway. Their careful words only deepen the mystery. How could a phenomenon so localized, so deliberate in appearance, escape detection by every instrument designed to monitor the skies? Meanwhile, religious leaders across the spectrum broke their silence. The chief rabbinate issued a rare statement calling for days of prayer and reflection, citing the appearance as a sign worthy of contemplation in light of our shared heritage and destiny. Christian leaders echoed similar sentiments. In Rome, the Pope referred to the event as a reminder that heaven is not silent, urging believers to prepare their hearts and open their eyes. In Istanbul, imams spoke of it as a divine invitation to unity and repentance. On social media, the event transcended religious boundaries. Hashtags like #LightOverZion and #TempleMountMiracle trended globally, accompanied by shaky smartphone videos and tearful witness testimonies. In one viral clip, a young boy can be heard whispering, "I think God is coming back." In another, a seasoned journalist, usually composed and skeptical, is seen visibly shaken. "I've covered wars and disasters for 30 years, he says, but I've never seen anything like this. But beyond the spiritual reactions, there were geopolitical ripples too. In the corridors of power, intelligence agencies scrambled for data, suspecting advanced technologies or foreign interference. Satellite footage was analyzed frame by frame. Military leaders briefed heads of state, concerned that the unexplained phenomenon might trigger unrest in a region already on the brink. After all, Jerusalem has always been more than a city, it is a spark that can ignite global conflict or global awakening. And awakenings did happen. Pilgrimages surged almost overnight. Thousands flocked to Jerusalem from every corner of the world, seeking to stand beneath the sky where the light had appeared. Airlines added extra flights to Ben Gurion Airport. Hotels in the Old City reported full bookings for months ahead. Streets once filled with tension now buzzed with a strange, reverent energy. People gathered in spontaneous circles of prayer, their voices blending languages and traditions in ways rarely seen before. At the same time, apocalyptic movements seized upon the event as confirmation of their long-held beliefs. Prophecy forums and end-times channels exploded with speculation. Dates were calculated, symbols dissected, timelines updated. Some groups proclaimed the imminent arrival of the Messiah, others warned of tribulation and judgment. For them, the light was not just a sign, it was a countdown. Yet amid this fervor, a quieter and deeper conversation began to take shape, one not driven by fear or fanaticism, but by introspection. Across faith communities, people started asking difficult questions. What if this is not a warning but a calling? What if the light is not announcing destruction, but inviting reconciliation? In a fractured world, torn by division and despair, the possibility that heaven might be reaching down with a message of hope struck a powerful chord. And then there was the curious coincidence, or perhaps not a coincidence at all. The light had appeared just days after a significant and unexpected diplomatic breakthrough. Several Middle Eastern nations had announced a new round of peace negotiations, citing a shared sense that time is short. In the halls of the United Nations, delegates whispered about the Jerusalem effect, a sudden global willingness to seek common ground. While skeptics dismissed it as opportunism, believers saw prophecy in motion. "When you see these things begin to happen," said one pastor during a televised sermon, quoting Luke 21 verse 28, "stand up and lift up your heads, because your redemption is drawing near." Meanwhile, scientists continued their investigations, but the more data they collected, the stranger the event seemed. Atmospheric readings showed no anomalies. Astronomical records revealed no celestial bodies that could explain the light's origin. Even electromagnetic scans detected nothing unusual. As one astrophysicist admitted on live television, it's as if the light was never there, and yet millions saw it. Theories proliferated, some scientific, some speculative, some outright bizarre. But none of them could erase the collective memory of that moment, nor could they compete with the feeling that something far greater than humanity had reached into the world. The more skeptics tried to explain it away, the more people believed. And so, As the world debated, prayed, and prepared, the question remained, was this a one-time wonder, a fleeting anomaly destined to fade from memory? Or was it the first note in a symphony of signs, signals from heaven that a chapter long written in prophecy was finally beginning to unfold? Chapter 4, the beginning of the final sequence. In the ancient language of prophecy, signs are never isolated. They are woven together into a tapestry, each one a thread leading toward an inevitable conclusion. A star over Bethlehem did not simply mark a birth, it heralded a kingdom. The darkening of the sun at Golgotha was not a meteorological event, it announced a cosmic shift. And so, many scholars believe, the celestial light over the Temple Mount is not the story's end, it is its opening line. For centuries, prophetic texts from all three Abrahamic faiths have spoken of a period known as the appointed time, a convergence of signs, events, and upheavals that would precede the arrival of a new era. Among those signs, light from the heavens holds a central place. Isaiah foresaw a time when nations shall come to your light, and kings to the brightness of your rising. Jesus spoke of a generation that will not pass away until all these things take place. And Islamic eschatology describes a radiant sign from the sky that would call the faithful to the gathering. Theologians point to a pattern unfolding before our eyes. They speak of a sequence of prophetic milestones, the return of Israel to its land, the regathering of nations in conflict over Jerusalem, the rise of global communication capable of transmitting signs instantly to the whole world, and now, perhaps, a visible manifestation over the Temple Mount itself. What was once allegory is becoming history. What was once dismissed as myth is appearing in the headlines. Some scholars refer to this moment as the threshold of convergence. The light over Zion, they argue, is not merely a spectacle but a signal, a divine timestamp indicating that the next phase is imminent. And what might that phase be? The rebuilding of the temple, long prophesied yet fiercely debated? The appearance of a messenger, a herald preparing the way? Or perhaps the unfolding of judgments and upheavals foretold in apocalyptic visions, earthquakes, wars, and a shaking of nations before the dawn of peace? Already, there are whispers in theological circles that plans once considered distant dreams are moving forward. Reports have surfaced of renewed discussions among certain religious authorities regarding the Third Temple, a project whose spiritual and political implications would be earth-shattering. Others believe the light heralds the coming of a prophetic voice, a figure who will call humanity to repentance and unity. And still others warn that this sign marks the beginning of the birth pangs, a time of great tribulation before ultimate redemption. But beyond the speculation, there is a deeper, quieter truth resonating among those who study the sacred texts. The purpose of signs is not prediction, but preparation. They are not given so that humanity can calculate dates or decode mysteries, but so that hearts can awaken. The question is not when the Messiah will come, or how the final events will unfold, but whether we are ready when they do. This theme runs like a thread through the scriptures. Noah was given a sign before the flood, but the true test was not deciphering the sign, it was building the ark. The Israelites saw the pillar of fire, but their calling was to follow it. The Magi read the star, but they still had to make the journey. Signs demand response. They call for alignment between heaven's will and human action. Today, the light over the Temple Mount is issuing that same call. It is stirring hearts, challenging complacency, and inviting humanity to lift its gaze beyond the chaos of daily life. In a world that seems consumed by division, despair, and distraction, this sign is a reminder that history is not random, it is guided. That beneath the noise of politics and science, there is a divine script unfolding with precision and purpose. Even secular observers admit that something profound is shifting. Humanity stands at a crossroads, technologically advanced but spiritually adrift, globally connected but morally fragmented. The great empires of the past have fallen, the certainties of modernity are crumbling, and questions once dismissed as irrelevant are returning with force. Why are we here? Where is history heading? Into that existential void, the light speaks without words. Look up. Pay attention. The story is moving forward. Perhaps this is why so many people, from so many walks of life, describe feeling something when they saw the light, a stirring in the soul, an intuition that the event was not about science or spectacle, but about destiny. It was like the sky itself was speaking, said one pilgrim. Not in a language of sound, but of meaning. And maybe that is the point. Signs do not exist to answer all questions, they exist to awaken deeper ones. They remind humanity that it is part of a narrative larger than itself, one that began long before us and will continue long after. Whether this light is a herald of the Messiah, a signal of coming tribulation, or the first step toward a new covenant, its message is the same: time is moving toward a divine appointment. The final sequence has not yet reached its climax, but it has begun. And those who watch the skies, who study the scriptures, and who sense the pulse of history beneath their feet know that this is not the end of the story. It is the threshold. The dawn before the day. The whisper before the voice. Epilogue, a message written in light. Long after the last witness had left the plaza and the glow over the Temple Mount had faded into memory, something remained, not in the sky, but in the hearts of those who had seen it. People returned to their homes with stories that words could barely capture. They spoke not only of a light that appeared where heaven and earth meet, but of a silence that followed, a silence filled with meaning, as though eternity itself had taken a breath. In the weeks that followed, the debates continued. Scientists still searched for answers, theologians still parsed the scriptures, skeptics still dismissed the event as coincidence. And yet, deep beneath the arguments, a quiet truth settled in: the world had been reminded that it is not alone. That beyond the reach of telescopes and laboratories, beyond the noise of politics and the calculations of power, there is a hand that still writes history, sometimes in fire, sometimes in storm, and sometimes in light. Perhaps the appearance over Zion was not meant to explain anything. Perhaps its purpose was far simpler: to remind humanity that the story is not finished. That the promises spoken thousands of years ago have not been forgotten. That the author has not abandoned the script. And that even in an age when faith has grown cold and the sacred is mocked, heaven still speaks. The prophets called moments like this remembrances, signs meant to awaken those who sleep and comfort those who watch. And maybe that is what happened here. Maybe the light was less about revealing the future and more about stirring the soul to prepare for it. For in the end, prophecy is not a puzzle to solve, but a path to walk. It does not exist to satisfy curiosity, but to call humanity home, to repentance, to hope, to readiness. The celestial light that descended over the Temple Mount may have lasted only minutes, but its echo will resound far longer, reminding us that the skies still speak, that the covenant still stands, and that history is still bending toward its promised end. So we watch. We wait. And we lift our eyes to the heavens, not in fear, but in expectation. Because if this light is indeed a sign, then it is not the end of the story. It is only the beginning of the return.